colloquium we have Frédéric Dillio. Everyone in Atlas knows him, and I guess some people in IFIC as well. He's our top convener in Atlas, and before he became the Atlas top convener, he's also been the D0 top physics convener. So he's in a very good position to tell us about the past and the present of top physics. I hope you'll also do the future. We'll see about that. Okay, so let's get going. Frédéric, the floor is up to you.
Thanks a lot, Marcel. Thanks a lot for the invitation. Okay, is it working? Yes. Okay, so I'll try to invite you to a small journey towards to the top, and the outline is basically why do we study the top quark. So first, I just want to tell you that despite what is what the title said, I won't talk about mountain climbing and everything like that, even if I think that some of our experience could, or discovery path could make us react like that, I think. But what I will really talk about is really some past history, present and future. So we'll start with saying why actually did we study top quark after all. So everything really started something like 40 years ago, where the B quark was discovered at Fermilab, and that was opening the third generation of the quarks. And then, because of theoretical arguments like the absence of flavor-changing neutral currents, so the Jim mechanism and the anomaly constellation, then everybody was thinking that we actually need the final quark here. And then just after that, then the quest was started. So first at the E+ in minus collider, so with increased energy over time, so just in early 90s. So then, and then when the range of the collision energy raised, then you see that the bonds of the top quark was raising, and after that, then the PP bar colliders enter the play, and first at UA1 and UA2, and then Fermilab, and then at some point after at Fermilab, basically it come out that the bound of on the mass of the top was start to be higher than the W mass, which means that then probably we would expect the top to decay into shell W. In parallel to that, then there have been a lot of indirect searches that with trying to fit all the different electroweak observables, where the top was assumed to be running into loops, and the consistency of the standard model was explored. And you see here that this is the last preprint of CERN before the top discovery in '94. And you see that it was, depending on what you include, LEP-only data, LEP or PP bar, and also LSD data, then you start to have a prediction, indirect prediction of the top quark mass through electroweak observables, which is not so precise, but still gives you a right indication. And actually, just a year after, then we had the top discovery at Fermilab in '95, and basically the first measurement of those of the mass was just right on top of the electroweak precision measurements that showed here. So this is a spectra that was published in those two D0 and CDF papers, and you see already. I mean, for us now it's a little bit, yeah. I mean, you see it's something like 10 events, something like that. So it was. You will see afterwards where we are getting now. But so this was a loose selection at D0, so there's a background expected here and only a few signals there. And CDF has also a background there and a peak there. So the first measurement of the mass was an error of quite large here. And this is the first also measurement of the cross section of the TT bar, so pair production cross section, and the event display of D0. So this was discovered at the Tevatron. So this is a Tevatron ring here, something like 9 kilometers of circumference with two detectors, CDF and D0. It's a PP collider with run 1. That's actually where the discovery of the top quark arised. with a limited luminosity, 120 inverse picogram. And then there have been quite a long, extensive shutdown between the run 1 and the run 2, where we've built the main injector ring, which is another ring next to it, to try to enhance the energy, so a little bit less than 2 TeV. And then also then you see that the delivered luminosity after those 8 years of running reached something roughly of 10 inverse femtobarn. So the CDF is here, and D0 is here, and this is the main building here. So what we've done with that is start to, after the discovery of the particle, try to establish the production of the TT bar pairs in all the different possible channels. And this is what we managed to do at the Tevatron. So the main production diagram is this one, so we'll come back to that later. And it's decaying also into a W and a B. And depending on how the W is decaying, then you have several decay channels. So at the Tevatron, the golden one was the lepton-Puget one. So when one of the W decay leptonically and the other one from the other top decay hadronically, so you end up with one lepton, electron, and muon, and a lot of jets, so 4 jets with 2 B tags and missing transverse energy. So in all those plots, you will see that it changed at the LHC, but at least at D0, then the top was the top color was red. So this is the excess. So we still use some discriminant to distinguish the TT bar background from the main background, which is W-Puget. So the golden one, as I said, is a lepton-Puget because it has a good bunching fraction, but also a reasonable background, as you said. But we also managed to establish the signature in all the other possibilities. This is a dilepton one, so which has a small rate, but also a very small background, which is picked here. It is used here as a discriminant. Then on the other part of the spectrum, basically, this is the all hadronic channel. When all the 2 Ws decay hadronically, then you have a lot of jets, so you have a lot of background coming main QCD production, and a small excess of TT bar at the high level of the discriminant. And we also managed to actually measure it in the tau channel. The tau-Puget one, which is also rather challenging because it's fully hadronic, and we still had managed to extract the cross-section with only 1 inverse femtobarn at that level, and also the lepton-Puget one when the rate was small and also the background was small. So what we managed to do with that is first, establish the first production in all the different channels, as I said, but also then you could do different cross-section ratios that could somehow put in direct limit in a possible extra production or decay of the top into potential charge higgs, for instance. And we managed also to fit all those cross-sections together to try to extract the VTB element of the CKM matrix. So basically it was moving from discovery to measurement mode. So we managed to first have the first look at quite a lot of the properties of these new particles. First, as I said, the production in QCD, electroweak production, I will talk to that a little bit later. And then quite a lot of his first properties, so I won't have time to go through all of them, but I've put a list here. So, for instance, the spin correlations that was managed to establish that the TT bar, the top and the RT top was produced correlated in spin. Those were the latest measurements of the polarization and of the asymmetry. So those are a lot of properties that were established, but what you can also see is that the error bars are still quite large. And you see, for instance, here the contours 1, 2, and 3 sigma, and you see that, I mean, we did quite a lot, but the precision was not so high. So another good, so let me talk a little bit about the electroweak production. So those are the diagrams that produce the top singly by this electroweak coupling, basically. So the main one at the Tevatrons, and actually also at the LHC, is the T channel. Then following after that is the S channel with something, a cross-section around 1 picobar, so a very small one. And then the WT one, which is even smaller than that and was totally not possible to observe at the Tevatron. So at the end, the combine of the cross-section of both those two is only 3 picobar, so it's rather small. And the background is quite large, so it was not really possible to do any content count measurement to try to extract this very small signal. And you see, for instance, a yield of what is a signal expectation here, and the different backgrounds. The main one is the WBGET and TT-bar, and you see that already the errors on those backgrounds at the same level of the expected signal. So what we try to do is develop some multivariate techniques to extract. So this is an example of a boosted decision tree, or a boosted decision tree that you can also boost. And so this is the output that we're getting, and at the end you see that there is a very small excess in blue here over the background of single top. But it was sufficient to try to observe it in 2009 independently by CMS and T0, and you see the measurements here, so that's a combined Tevatron measurements that is an agreement with the 3 picobar assuming the predicted by the standard model, but if you can see the numbers, then the precision was only of the order of 15 or 20%. What was also recently managed to do by combining the D0 and CDF measurements, so only 2 years ago basically, is try even to observe, so to have a 5 sigma significance of the S channel only, which is very small cross section around 1 picobar. And you see again in the high tail of the discriminant, that's what you manage to extract from the data and the measurement here. And if you do even a measurement in the 2D plane, so the T channel versus S channel, this is a measurement here, and you see several new physics model, and you see that being able to disentangle those different type of channel in single top can allow you to exclude some of the new physics models that predict enhancement of the T channel, for instance, here, and not the S channel. Okay, so just an overview of this was the PDGs, or the particle data group listing at the end of run 1. So basically just after the discovery, and you see that it was only 1 page. So we managed to establish that in run 1, but just measure it roughly, and this is the cross-section basically, and the mass. And this is what we managed to do after run 2. So you see that we have really start to explore a lot of stuff. So was it the end of the journey? Not really, because we actually were very exciting about at that time about the start of the LHC, and that will open a new area. Okay, so just a bit before moving to that, and it seems that people were exciting about other stuff, other journey to the top. So I just discovered that when I prepared the slides, so I want to share that with you. So people were astonished with that, and this is what they call the journey to the top. And for that, this is a game. I don't know if anybody knew that. I don't know if our American colleagues know it, but this is what they call something an iconic representation of freedom within an arc which is something like 200 meters high and was built in the 16 in St. Louis, Missouri. And you can actually claim inside it. So there is an elevator there, and you can go inside, and this is what they advertise to be the journey to stop. So I don't know if anybody here visited it already or not. You did? Okay. And so, is it nice?
Yeah, you get dizzy.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah, there's nothing under your feet.
Yeah. Okay, so probably, I don't know if it's as nice as the Statue of Liberty of the Golden Gate as it's advertised, but yeah, could be nice. Okay, so this was the past, so now why are we still studying the top quark nowadays? So, this is something that we are usually saying, but I think this is really true. Even after the discovery of the Higgs boson, the top is still the heaviest elementary particle, and this is the key of why I think we are still studying it. Because of this very high mass, then the scoping to this is really close to 1. So, and because of that, then we think that maybe it could play a special role in the electroasymmetry breaking system, or at least it can help us to understand it better. Because of its high mass, it's also decaying before anodization, so it's really the unique way to try to observe a bare quark. And so for all those reasons, we think it's a possible window to new physics. So the windows to the physics could go in two ways. First, in direct searches by trying to measure new particles that decay into top or like tops, for instance, but also indirect searches when you can compare precision measurements with the standard model expectation, and then hopefully you can try to understand, for instance, why the mass of this quartz is so high compared to the other one, for instance. Okay, so this is the LHC area, and this is opening up a new scale, basically. So the LHC, as you know, is a proton-proton collider. So with the two, now the ring is 27 kilometers long, and actually you cannot see it anymore. As the Tevatron, it was on surface, half, and this is one now. It's too much populated that you can put it on surface, so it's really down the ground. We've got several runs. Run 1 with increased energy at 7 and 8 TeV, with 5 inverse femtobarn and 7 TeV and 20 at 8 TeV. And then we were just, since 2 years, starting the run 2 of the LHC with, you see here now, already delivered luminosity or recorded luminosity around 36 inverse femtobarn and expected luminosity at the end of this run of around 100 femtobarn, inverse femtobarn. So Atlas, yeah, I mean, for the Atlas people, of course, I won't describe it, you won't learn a lot, but just in case people don't know it, so it's really gigantic. You see the dimension here. We learn a lot of people with quite, I mean, 1/3 of the people working on it are students. A lot of them are here, so that's good. Not the 1,020 students, but some of them. A lot of institute and really gigantic ones. So you see the scale here, that's human being, and this is the real measurement, the real picture of the detector here. So as I said, so now for the LHC, the main production is of the TT-bar pair, at least through QCD, is done by with a Gluon-initiated TT-bar production, while only a small portion of it, like at the Tevatron, is coming from QQ-bar. And then this is how the point chart of the decay channels that we already discussed. Now, how we identify all those particles here, then, yeah, most of you know that already also, but then depending on if an electron and photons that give you some interaction in the electronic calorimeter, then there are also hadrons that are interacting more in the hadronic part of the calorimeters, while the muons here are just passing by through all of it and deposit just some track in the muon spectrometer, while the neutrino is actually escaping everything and is inferred from energy conservation. And something which is quite particular also for the top is that basically with the different TT-bar decay of it, then we can actually explore all of those, or need actually all of those objects. And this is also why this is the TT-bar is sometimes used to calibrate the data, because it's a good candle. So this is an example of a nice 30 TeV top quark candidates. So you see the two jets here. So one of, those two are actually B tags. This is a muon that interact with the muon spectrometer, and this is an electron. So it's nice. It's a nice dielectron candidate. So LHC is really a top factory, and this is where I put some numbers here. So first, that's the TT-bar cross-section at NLLO for the different, so at the Tevatron, and then for the different energy of the LHC. And then depending on the luminosity and the cuts you apply, this is roughly, basically the data set of the statistics of tops that we have. So you see that from going from Tevatron to only the 7 TeV LHCs, and we gain more than a factor of 5. And again, more than a factor of 5 at 8 TeV, and even more than that at 13 TeV. It's roughly the same for single top. So really now, in addition to the increase of energies, and LHC is bringing us precision and access to the rare and new processes. So this is an example of the mass spectrum at the Tevatron, the reconstructed mass, and you see the scale, 100 type of events. Then this is the same distribution of the best phase mass at LHC at 7, and you also see the scale, and at 8 TV. So really now we can play with a lot of TT bar or single top. And the first thing that we are doing is trying to measure the inclusive cross-section. So this is the inclusive cross-section measurement of the function of the square root of S. So you see, so that this is a tevatron. So there's two lines. So the blue one is a PP bar prediction, and the other one is a PP one. So this is the tevatron measurement, and this is the measurement that have been done at the LHC. So a rough measurement with some pilot plot by CMS at 5 TV, then a measurement at 7 TV, 8 TV, and 13 TV. And you see that 13 TV is now really at the same level, basically, of precision as the theoretical prediction. So, for instance, this is the best measurement we have for the moment, which is using dilepton invariant mass. So now TT bar is in white for Atlas. And you see you have plenty, you really, as soon as you ask for at least one B jet in the final state, you barely have any background in it. So we managed to have a measurement of the precision of 4.5%, which is limited by the systematic uncertainty, and along this list, and apart from the luminosity measurements, obviously there is also the main, basically systematic is coming from hadronization models, so how we are modeling the non-perturbative hadronization effects, basically. So what we can also do, because of all those really large statistics, is to go differential. So this is really how we can try to interface between the state-of-the-art theory computation and the Monte Carlo generator and the experiment. And to do that, we try to correct for all those effects. So we start from a parton level, which is really simple, so TT bar with a decay. So in fact, after that, in the because of fragmentation, parton-Charlois harmonization, then we end up to have something which is like that, so a little bit more complicated, and that we call parton level. But this is not the end, because obviously all those particles, particle level, those particles are interacting with the detector. So at the end, what you see in the detector are fly jet, leptons, and B jets. So what we are doing to try to measure those TT bar differential cross-section is to correct either to particle level or to parton level using unfolding, and this is how it's done. So this is the master formula, basically. So this is your measurement that you want to extract in a bin of one given observable. So basically you would start from your RICO distribution here, you subtract the background, and then what you need to correct for the acceptance effects, so basically stuff that are reconstructed in new fiducial volume, but that were not at the generator level. The same for the matching if you want to remove any combinatoric uncertainties. This is a matrix that basically map the particle level to the detector level quantities. So basically, what you hope is to have something which is as diagonal, as much diagonal as possible, so that basically that's dependent on your resolution and how you reconstruct the data. And after that, you invert this matrix, and you still have to correct for the remaining efficiencies, and then you end up to have this unfolded distribution. So this is, for instance, RICO PT of the top, before at the reconstructed level, and then after unfolding. So obviously after unfolding, then you're gaining some uncertainties, because all those steps are going with some uncertainties, but you can still see that with this only 2015 3-inverse femtobarn uncertainty TV data, you have some discrimination between different models or different Monte Carlos that predict a slope which is a little bit higher than what is seen, for instance, in this particular case. You can also do better, much better, because you can do it in all the different decay channels, and this is really something that was not possible before. We have a lot of statistics at the LHC, so this is what the LHC is opening up, basically. You can do it so in all the different channels with a lot of observables. You can also do it with in a specific region of the phase space of high boosted top, where basically you start at low PT when you have really the decay product of the tops that are very well separated, while at the boosted levels then everything is a little bit merged, and you have to develop a new type of reconstruction algorithm to basically tag those ones, and this is what has been explored to that level. So this is the same top PT distribution, but then using boosted topology, so that's why it's basically starting at 400 GeV, for instance. And you can end up with the data we had analyzed for the moment, and you start to even reach the TV level, for instance, for these measurements. You can also go further and try to do double differential measurements. So you can bin it not only in one particular observable, but in two. So this is an example of the CMS measurement that is done the measurements versus top PT, but also versus the rapidity of the top in each of the slices. And it has been shown that then, if you do so, then you can have better constraint of Monte Carlo, or even tighter constraint on PDF fits when you try to do it. You can also do it in other type of phase space or final states when you actually measure top with any additional radiation, and you see again that this is quite powerful to constrain the modeling of the Monte Carlo radiation, for instance. So as I said, we measured, we did some measurements, but there are also a way of interplay between measurement and searches. And this is an example here. So this is a measurement, unfolding measurement of the TT bar spectrum, for instance. The same one that we did with the same techniques that was done for the PT of the top. And this is so basically this is the same distribution that is used to extract limit on new physics, like for instance on Z prime, new particles that would decay in TT bar. So you try to reconstruct the TT bar invariant mass, as you see here, and you are looking for a bump. So you see that depending on the size of the scale of these new resonances, then you can measure it better and better, worse or better. So basically at 1 TeV you can reconstruct it very well peaked, and if you start to be at higher mass, then it starts to be a wider peak because of reconstruction problem and resolutions. And you see that using that, then you can test if you see any excess in this distribution. This is what has been done, and then with that particular distribution and data from last year, then we can exclude a resonance up to a little bit more than 2 TeV. So this was basically the reach we were managed to have with the first set of 13 TeV data. So this is a whole bunch of cross-section, Atlas cross-section versus different processes. So you see that we are now with TT bar and single top that will test at a level of 100 picobar, basically. So the single top at the LHC is slightly different. So the main production is also by T channel, as for the Tevatron, but the second one, the second main one is by WT, and then the third one is S channel. So the S channel cross section is only of the order of 5 picobar, something like that. So what we've done also for the single top processes is try to establish the single top signal at all different energies, and then achieve really precision measurements using also multivariate discriminant. And those are the summary of the measurement at 7 TeV, 8 TeV, and 13 TeV, for instance. So I just want to point out several nice measurements. So first, the T channel one that we achieved at 8 TeV has a precision of the order of 6%, while if you remember, then we had only 15 or 20% precision of those cross-sections at the Tevatron. We also managed to establish the first observation of this WT process at 7 and 8 TeV. So this is the first observation of this one, because it was really not accessible at the Tevatron. So we see also using boosted decision tree. And we also even managed to get some evidence, so 3 sigma evidence of S-channel production at the LHC. So this is this point here. So this is even more difficult than WT, and you see because the cross-section is so small, basically. And you see the small excess that you managed to extract using also matrix element techniques in that case. So we are in the process of trying to repeat and to establish those signals also at 13 TeV, but as you see, the precision is not there yet, but with the amount of data that we'll get, we certainly manage to do even better. So that was for the inclusive measurement, and because of the statistics, we also managed to, for the first time, also trying to do some differential measurements using single top. So this is 2 examples at 2 different levels, parton level and particle level of, again, the top PT, but then now it's single top. And you see again that there is nice discrimination between different models that are predicted, and so soon probably we also use those measurements to improve the Monte Carlo tuning. Okay, so this was at the level of 100 picobar. Now we can go even further of the real process, so of the order of 10 or even lower picobar here, with TT bar produced with, for instance, with additional bosons. So, those processes, so that were accessible again for the first time at the LHC, are those ones, for instance, so TT bar produced with the W or TTZ or TT gamma, for instance. So this particular TTZ, for instance, is really sensitive to anomalous coupling of the top and Higgs on the Z and top, for instance. This is also important because those ones are background for new physics searches. So we had the first measurement of those processes also at 8 and 13 TeV. So this is, for instance, the output of the Atlas measurement in all the different channels. So depending on the decay product of the top and the W of these, and you can have find a state with 2 leptons, 3 leptons, or 4 leptons. And you see that if you start to go at the 4 lepton level, for instance, you see clearly the excess of TTZ over the background. So the measurements are still at the limit of the observation of those processes. So we have evidence at 13 TeV of this process in TTZ, not quite yet for TTW. And this is the measurement we are getting in the 2D plane. So TTV and 2TZ versus TTW. The measurement is slightly above the standard model expectation, so we have to see what will come out of the analysis of the full 13 TeV data that we have, so 10 times more statistics. And this is also what I was telling you, the sensitivity of the TTZ and TTW versus anomalous coupling, and you see that this is a measurement, and this is how the prediction could change with those different anomalous coupling, and you see that this clearly has some discrimination power at the level of those extra coupling for the moment. So the next one stuff that is really important and that I really want to extract or to measure it soon is the top coupling to the Higgs. Why? But first, because then this would be a direct measurement of this coupling here, so that is directly proportional to the TTH cross-section, basically. And as we said already, that the top is very heavy, then trying to be able to measure this coupling is quite important, basically. We should also to try to verify the proportionality of the coupling versus the mass. This is one that has been published in one with Atlas and CMS. So the top one is here coming from loop and constrained, but not from direct measurement, because this process was not observed yet. So this is one of the key processes that still need to be observed, basically. So how we do it? So we try to then look for all the different decay channels of the Higgs. So the largest concentration of the Higgs is BB bar, but then it's rather difficult to extract because you have a TT bar and a Higgs decaying to BB bar. So basically you have a large background for TT bar project or TT bar BB bar standard processes. But it still managed to try to extract it. So using again multivariate discriminant boosted distribution tree in that case, you can see the slight excess of, or at least how you would see the TTH signal here with 13 inverse femtobarn of data. So we're not quite here yet. There's also measurement in the other decay channel of the Higgs, so either using WW or ZZ or gamma gamma, for instance. So this is one of the example again. So, but then here, don't be screwed. This the TTH signal has been multiplied by 2.5, so which is the limit we are able to set for the moment. So those are the first result of the TTH process at certain TV we have now. So somehow around three times what is expected from the standard model for the moment. So, but that's only using a fraction of the certain TV luminosity that we have. So we hope that maybe next year we'll be able to maybe have the 3 sigma evidence of this stuff. So we are just in the way of this interesting journey. So before moving on, so still another stuff that I discovered during preparing the slides is another way of journey to the top. So might be useful for you to check. This is how you would be if you are targeting to get your boss seats. Then you can also have this journey to the top. So I put you the link here, so if you're interested. To be honest, I read it. It's not that I want to take the seat of my boss, but so this is what you have to achieve. So, but to me, it's not clear at all. So if you know that more than me, get things done. Okay. Let solution motivates. I'm not sure what it means. Promoting teamwork, so that's okay, but that's only the third step, right? So, and then coach yourself.
It's the fourth step.
Which is the fourth step. So, okay, I don't know. If you, so you have the link here, so you can read those small boxes and everything like that. So maybe you know how to get there, but to be honest, I'm not sure I understand all those stuff. Anyway, so back to the top. Top mass. So this is the stuff that is also quite of importance because obviously as this is the average elementary particle, then we need to measure its mass very precisely. So there's motivation for it. So one of them that we try to put forward is really the fate of the universe. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit too much, but then it's still important to say because using this mass and the mass of the Higgs is important to try to see what is our vacuum is stable or not. As you see, this is a top mass versus Higgs mass plane, and if you put, depending on the region where you stand in this plane, then either our vacuum is totally unstable, which means that we will just at some point disappear, or we are in the metastability part or in the stability part. So which means that basically this famous Mexican hat basically is either has this shape as high energy, this one or this one. So we're here. So in the instability region, then by tunneling effect, and we can just directly go into this other lower part of the vacuum, and then the universe will be destroyed instantaneously. Or we are in the metastability part, where those two are a little bit in the same region, and so the tunneling probability or time is at the level of the time of the universe, so we're probably more or less safe. Or we are totally in the stability part, so which means that our current vacuum is really the lower one. So with the measurement we have for the moment, we're staying in this region. So basically we are at the limit between metastability and stability. But obviously trying to reduce the measurement of the top mass and will help to precise this region basically. We can also use the top mass to try to compare the direct measurements with the indirect one. So this is a direct measurement of the top quark and the W mass. And you can relate them with the Higgs mass here. So now with that, we have those direct measurements that can be directly compared with the fit of the electronic model, basically in a way that has been done before the top observable. And if you manage to shrink down those ellipses, then you would be able to see if there is a tension or not between the direct measurement and the indirect one. So there are several ways of doing top mass measurements. the direct searches, you just we're using the standard method when you try to basically use the template method to fit the reconstruction distribution with your Monte Carlo generated at different masses. So this is an example, for instance, this is a reconstruction mass, and you see how obviously the peak is changing versus the value of the top mass. So you can do that. You can also do direct measurement, but with some alternative method, where you can try to use partial decay products that are less sensitive to systematics, or that use different observable. For instance, this is an example of CMS measurement using the J-psi decay of the B, so which has a very low branching fraction. But if you use this invariant mass of the J-psi plus one lepton coming from the W, then you can, this invariant mass of the 3 leptons is sensitive to the top mass, and you basically manage to reconstruct an observable which is really not sensitive at all to the energy scale or to the hadronization, or less sensitive to the hadronization part, because you're not using basically jets in the final state. There is also indirect measurements when you can use, for instance, a cross-section or maybe the top kinematic itself, so that you can have less input from the Monte Carlo, or you can really extract the mass in a well-defined renormalization scheme. So this is the example of Atlas measurement again. So this is a cross-section versus the mass. So that's the measurements. So you see that you could have some dependency of the measurement through basically the acceptance cuts. So if you put some tighter acceptance cuts, then you can see that sometimes if you have lower mass, then you will get less events. But what have been done in Atlas is that have been achieved that the cross-section measurement is really almost insensitive, basically, to the value of the mass. And this is a theoretical prediction, basically, and that's where the dependency is coming from, basically the matrix element. And if you cross those two, then you can basically try to measure the mass directly in a well-defined renormalization scheme. But then the drawback, obviously, is that this is really depending on the size of those two errors, and it's, for the moment, less precise than the direct measurements. So this is the history of the top mass measurement before the discovery here. So that's all the indirect, that's the limit here, and the direct measurement from the direct constraint from the electron fits. And then after the discovery, then there is this first measurement that were achieved at the tevatron run 1. Then the measurement at run 2 of the tevatron, that you start to be quite precise, and then we're now entering a region where we really are at the sub-percent level in terms of top mass measurement with the LHC machine. So maybe two examples. So the first one, which is one of the recent Atlas measurements using a standard method that is using a template fit of the invariant mass of the B and the lepton from the W decay. This is how this observable is actually sensitive to the mass, and you see that again the peak is a little bit shifted depending on the value of the mass. This is the actual measurement with data. Then the main background here is coming from combinatorics. When you get the wrong assignment of the B and the lepton, but still, in most of the cases you manage to get the right one. And this is the value we're getting. So measurement really, as I said, below the percent, so 0.5%, so really nice. And then again, so in that case, then because it's a dilepton channel, then you cannot constrain the jet energy scale from using the W mass, and one of the largest systematic is coming from the jet energy scale still, but also quite a lot of uncertainty, systematic uncertainty coming from modeling that we'll have to fight again for the next round of measurements. Then another example is the analysis that have been carried out here, actually. So TT bar plus jet 1. So you're trying to extract the pole mass. So this is an example of the alternative method, because what is important in this vacuum stability plot is try to see what enters this stability plot is really the pole mass. And so the problem of the standard method is that you really use Monte Carlo mass to extract it, because you need to fit the distributions that you are reconstructing. So it's really not fully clear which kind of mass you are measuring, because this is really the mass in the Monte Carlo that you are measuring, and it can be a few hundred MeV away from the real pole mass. So it's quite important also to try to measure this pole mass directly, to try to see if we are here or here in terms of the value of the mass. So not only the precision is important, but also the value itself. So this is a nice way of trying to do it by fit the normalized distribution differential TT bar plus one jet cross-section as a function of this the inverse of the invariant mass of the TT bar plus jet, this rho variable here, which is basically exploits the fact that gluon radiation depend on the mass of the quark. So this is a distribution that you can see, and with a different type of top mass, you see that the distribution is changing explicitly at this hands of the rho parameter. And then you can compare this unfolded distribution with really theoretical, well-defined theoretical prediction NLO with Parton shower, and so extract a mass which in a well-defined renormalization scheme. So this is the published result at 7 TeV with the precision. So the jet generosity scale is again one important systematic in this measurement, but also in that case some theoretical input coming from the scale variation. So still that the precision at 7 TeV is at a level of 1.2%. So we hope to improve it for at 820 TeV, and to also try to be competitive with all those alternative measurements. So there's been a lot of efforts trying to develop those alternative methods at LHC recently. So this is a summary of the standard top mass measurement. So at the Tevatron, so we managed to achieve quite some precise measurement of it at below the percent using run 2, when the more precise measurements are coming from the lepton plus jet final state, basically. And as I said, because of also statistics, I mean, the main focus was on the standard method. At the LHC, there are plenty of measurement also in for all the different decay channels of the top, but also, as I said, a lot of effort in the alternative method that are not summarized here. So here now we achieve precisions which is shown here. You see that it's 0.7 GeV for the combined Atlas mass, and 0.5 GeV for the combined CMS1. See, Atlas is still needs still to update the lepton plus jet channel. It's 8 GeV. Okay, so that was the status of what we did so far, or a preview of what we did so far for at the LHC. So now, why will we still continue to study the top quark after this LHC area? But I mean, I think the first answer to that is that actually we are all really just at the beginning of the LHC lifetime. We're here while we still have more than 10 years of LHC running ahead of us. So this is a level of luminosity that we hope to be able to achieve at the end of this run 2. But after that, then there is a upgrade phase of the detector to be able to hopefully achieve something like 300 inverse femtobarn. And after that, even what we call the high luminosity LHC phase will start, and then we'll be able to collect 300 inverse femtobarn per year. So this is really something that we should explore and will continue to explore for top physics. And one of the important research schemes that will try to continue to explore it is, for instance, the rare process like flavor changing neutral currents. Those so this is the main, as I said, decay product, or the only decay product, decay of channel of the top, but all the other ones, so this basically changing flavor of the top, going into a light one or C1 and emitting some neutral particle like gluon, Z, H, or gamma are forbidden at 3 level in the standard model because only this one is achievable. They are also heavily suppressed in higher order, but they're rather good candidates to try to enhance physics beyond the standard model. For instance, this coupling, in fact, could be seen as this one, where you can put one additional new particle that in the loop here that you cannot maybe access directly, but you can, when you try to measure this or to try to put limits on this particular process, and you can be sensitive to this extra particle in the loops, basically. But so this is a level of branching fraction that we expected. So the standard model is really expecting, as I said, very, very low efficiency, so at the level of 10 to the minus 12, while you see that some of the SUSY or exotic models are really predicting something which is very much higher than that. So if we manage to reach those range, then we and see something that will be direct evidence for beyond standard model physics. So this is the level of branching ratio that we achieved for the moment with the analysis we have at the Tevatron, at the LHC, sorry. So it's at the level of branching ratio of 10 to the minus 4, and you see that we're just barely reaching those interesting regions when you have those SUSY, PV, MSSM, or 2HGM models, for instance. While so that's for all the different type of decay channels that we're looking for, and this is a level of standard models that I think we'll never be able to achieve at the LHC at least. But then, so if you look, so there's the same basically area, but then in the plane of looking at directly in a different plane, basically. So you see that all those regions are excluded. So that's a different branching ratio of top to light or top to C, basically. And you see that what we hope to achieve with the high luminosity LHC is really to be able to be sensitive to a branching fraction of 10 to the minus 5 or even below that. So another interesting stuff that we are pursuing is trying to do already now, but that will gain importance probably with the luminosity phase, is some model-independent searches. So I recall you that this is what we are searching directly in terms of production of a Z boson, for instance, that decay into TT bar. But you see that if basically the Z prime is very heavy and it's not kinematically accessible, then at the end what you will end up is something like that, basically. And what you will see just a small excess over the MTT bar spectrum that would not only be accessible by precise measurement of this particular spectrum. And so a way to say that and to search for it in a model-independent way when you have when the new particle has too heavy to be produced directly is this kind of dimension 6 operators, when you can look at the standard model Lagrangians that you had those new physics contributions that could change basically the couplings of the top to the light quark, or the coupling of the top to gluon or to W. And so what we would be able to do is probably try to put all those different prediction or different couplings and see how they influence the different kinematics of the precision measurement, and try to fit all those together to try to see if we can have some hints about all those new operators. And this is one example that is done by theoreticians of which of those couplings could be sensitive with the measurement we'll have. So this is a plan that we'll try to pursue with high luminosity 1. So basically, for the high luminosity phase, and the running condition will be highly non-trivial, because then we'll end up to have some pile-up around 150 or 200. So really that will be a lot of challenges for all the detectors, and a lot of us are actually working to upgrade the detector to cope with those different conditions. But then high luminosity will give us access to a lot of rare decays and a lot of statistics. We talked about FCNC, for instance. We also would be sensitive to very small anomalous coupling of of the top to Z, W, and or X, for instance. This is one example of how the significance will change if which region would be sensitive to those anomalous coupling if you start from now until using 300 inverse femtobarn and then 3,000 inverse femtobarn, and you see that except for the very small region around around zeros, and will be able to be sensitive at 3 sigma to all those regions in yellow. We can also explore the fact that we'll have a lot of more statistics in try to measure, for instance, the top mass in those rare decay modes like the JPSI, and this is one projection by CMS, and you see that using 3 inverse femtobarn of data, and this use of the JPSI rare decay of the top to measure the top mass will be quite competitive with your other channels also. So this is for LHC. So just a quick word about the possible top physics at next collider. People in the room are more expert than me about that probably. So for all those new colliders, then again, probably the statistical uncertainty will be totally negligible. So in terms of lepton collider, depending on the range of those machines, and 300 GeV or up to 1 TeV, then we would be able to achieve quite a bit also. So one important point in those machines, if we can reach the TT bar threshold, is to try to scan basically the TT bar cross-section versus center of mass. So basically, we do a TT bar scan of TT bar threshold scan of this quantity, and you see that this the position of the peak is changing with the mass, and this will allow, and this is quite sensitive to it, and this will allow basically to have to gain even a factor of 10 more than that, a factor of 10 in terms of precision. So that will be probably the ultimate precision in terms of top quark mass. In addition to that, and the theoretical uncertainty on this spatial scan is quite small, and this is also would allow to extract it in a well-defined normalization scheme. So we won't have this problem of Monte Carlo, basically. We can also achieve quite a good precision of fundamental top coupling to the Higgs, for instance, with a precision of around 4%, while at high luminosity you could maybe achieve 10% at the LHC. Now for Hadron Collider, then it's then if we really manage to have a next collider which with higher energies, and obviously that will open up new possibility in searches, for instance, because then obviously resonances. This is one the reach will now also gain almost a factor of 10 if we manage to have a 100 TeV collider machine. But there are also a lot of activities that could be done in anomalous coupling. For instance, this is one example here when you see how the TeV collider can be able to shrink the top chromoanalytic and chromo-dipole moments of the top, and the top Higgs precision of around 1%. With all those machines, also something which also is a new word for us is probably we'll have to deal with really very boosted top, and basically top will be like a light quark. So we'll have to really change our way to now analyze the top physics, and to analyze the top, or to reconstruct the top and to extract them, because of those particular topologies that we're not used to at the LHC. Okay. So I think I'm out of time already. So this just was a quick journey of 20 years of top physics. This is the 1-1 again, and 10 events of the observation. This is what we managed at the end, at the beginning of round 2 for one of the top mass measurements using a small luminosity. This is what we achieved at the end of round 2. So yeah, 100 events that can still be used to extract top quark mass. And this is the same peak at the beginning of, at the end of the 7 TeV run. And what we see now at 8 TeV and 13 TeV, and 13 TeV it's only a small fraction of of the measurement or the statistics that we managed to analyze for the moment. So surely it will continue. So thanks a lot.